All right, it's BlizzCon 09, Day 2. Dustin Browder, you sir, one of the big wigs on StarCraft 2. How's the show treating you so far?
It's been great. It's just really fun to meet with the fans and kind of see what they're geeked up about and kind of understand what they're looking forward to in our products. It's just a lot of fun being here at BlizzCon.
Excellent, excellent. So, you guys haven't put the beta out yet. You know, we've been expecting the beta for a while. That hasn't happened. You recently publicly confirmed that the delay into next year is in effect. I'm looking for some good news on StarCraft 2. What do you got for me?
Yeah, I think a couple months ago I actually said on the forums that we were in the final stretch. I'm definitely regretting those words now. We're looking at trying to get something out at the end of the year at this point to the fans for the beta, but obviously we just missed this milestone. We just missed this deadline for the fans, so we don't really know what's going to happen. We're all working just as hard as we can to get something that's really high quality out to the fans so they can really test it for us and tell us even more about what's broken about the game, but we're working on it as fast as we can at this point.
So you've had these pretty specific dates in the past in mind for when you would roll the beta out. What's it like internally when you guys kind of realize, you take a step back and you think, all right, we're not ready to push this out yet? Does that come from you? Is that from somewhere else in the development pipeline? Like who is in a boardroom or a conference room table arguing and like shouting at each other about what to do?
I think it's really everybody at that point. Like we're all looking at the product and there's usually a lot of arguments like, no, we can go with it, no, we can't. There's a lot of debate, a lot of hand-wringing and screaming and, the occasional fist fight. But, it's really tough for us when we do this. And when we usually reach a consensus like this, it's pretty obvious to everybody. We can look at it, when you sort of let go emotionally and look at it, you can say, oh my God, they're right, we're not ready, and so it's something that everybody comes around to after a while. Usually it's one brave soul who'll raise his hand and says, hey, just saying, I think we're not ready, right? And everybody will kind of scream about it and say, it's not true, we can do it. But, often after a while, you look at the product, you sit down, you play it for a little bit, you give it a really good hard look, an honest look from how a consumer would see the game, and you can usually all come to an agreement pretty quickly. Like, yeah, this one guy, this brave guy is right, we're not ready yet.
Are there two separate teams is there a BattleNet team and a StarCraft team? I mean, BattleNet initially exists in support of just this game. Obviously, it's going to support subsequent games, but are you guys doing everything on both those projects, or is it, these guys are over here doing the BattleNet and you guys are in your vacuum making the game?
We do have a full BattleNet team that does a lot of the heavy lifting on BattleNet. We do help them out a little bit. They do help us out a little bit, but they do have a full BattleNet team of, I don't even know how many guys at this point, 20 guys, 15 guys, something like that. And those guys do provide the bulk of the really hard work, a lot of the hard network code, making sure the servers are all the right locations all over the world, all this kind of work to make sure that everything works.
Okay. Now, so you guys have said pretty candidly that BattleNet is basically what's holding up the beta and the release of the game. So BattleNet notwithstanding, the readiness of that product, forget about that. How do you feel about just the game, like the balance, the multiplayer, the units that are in? Are you feeling like that stuff's pretty firm, or do you think that once the beta starts, like you could still be yanking units out and like throwing buildings away?
Well, I wouldn't say it's just BattleNet at this point. Like that was sort of the driving factor, and I think we might have tried to push something out. But I'm actually quite thankful at this point that we held up for the solo campaign in particular. There's a lot of additional work that we're doing all of a sudden. Like, oh, we can make this better. We're making it a lot better as a result of this delay. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a real benefit for the solo campaign. It will help BattleNet. There's a lot of performance work that's still going on that we don't tend to talk about as much, especially at a show. We show you guys this stuff on really good machines, right? And so now we get to really work on that as well. So really there's a wide spectrum of things that this delay is allowing us to fix and clean up and really polish to sort of a fine sheen. In terms of the multiplayer stuff, we will absolutely change anything we want to or need to change once we get to the beta. One of the things that that Blizzard has encouraged this team to do, that Rob Pardo, who's done a bunch of these betas before, has encouraged our team to do, is don't hold on too tight before you go into that beta, because the fans are going to show you stuff you cannot believe when they get a hold of your game. So, relax, be cool about it, do the best work you can, but when you go to that beta, if you find out your favorite unit is not good enough, cut it, change it, alter the balance, whatever you need to do. And so we're really waiting on that beta to see what happens. Certainly I think we're far better off than we've ever been before in any of our other games. Like Warcraft 3, according to the guys who worked on Warcraft 3, was not this solid in terms of its multiplayer. So I think we're a little ahead of the game in multiplayer, but that does not mean that we won't be willing to make changes, when the time comes.
I mean, even still, recovering 100% of supply from buildings, might not be the best thing to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you recover or you salvage buildings, you get all the money back. Like, there's definitely some stuff in the game that I look at and go, really? Can that be balanced? Like, I think that's got to be out of balance. But when we play games in the office, we're not seeing a problem. But, that's what beta's for. We'll go out with the beta, we'll show it to the fans, and they'll exploit these things or not, and we'll find out what's real and what's not real.
Cool. So what sticks out in your mind so far with the single-player campaign that you're using this extra time for? I've heard some kind of scuttlebutt around the show, some of the in-between mission sort of research aspects. It sounds like maybe you guys aren't happy with some of that stuff. Can you give some examples of specifically what you're looking at?
So we're looking at a lot of the story mode stuff, trying to make sure that it really works well together with the gameplay experience. Some of the story mode stuff and some of the mission stuff aren't really well connected together yet. We're trying to sort of connect those things together. So when you find stuff on maps, it's reflected in the environment in story mode, or we've got like research stuff that we're doing right now. The mechanics for those aren't really as interesting as we want them to be. So we're going to definitely look at changing up stuff all across the story mode space to try to make it really clean and really tight. The other thing we're doing right now is when you get into the story mode space, you can play this at the show here today, you suddenly find yourself up against 4 rooms, a whole bunch of new mechanics coming at you all at once, and in our play tests in the office, it's just a little overwhelming. So we're going to try to space that stuff out a little bit evenly over the course of the game so that you're getting rewarded more often with more interesting stuff throughout the game instead of getting one giant reward at mission 3 and then nothing else after that. It's kind of a mistake. So just lots of polished stuff at this point that really sort of tighten the whole experience up.
So one of your kind of Blizzard rock stars is Chris Metzen. He's all over this BlizzCon. He's kind of de facto MC. He's the big lore guy in all your games. I know he's involved with the WoW movie. How much has he shaped or influenced the fiction and the storyline in StarCraft 2? Was he the big idea, the guy that kind of plotted out the story and you guys sort of filled in around it, or is it more of a collaborative thing?
Well, Chris is one of the driving forces behind almost all of the lore that goes on in our games these days, and a lot more guys. As we've gotten bigger and bigger, more guys are stepping up and helping him out. But early on in StarCraft 2, he was the man sort of helping guide the vision and help create this game. We've got guys like Andy Chambers, myself, Rob Pardo, Nick Carpenter. All these guys sat in with him in meetings and discussed what we were doing with the game and gave him feedback on it. But he was really sort of pushing where these characters were going, since he, was sort of the driving force behind these characters, back in the 90s when the original StarCraft and Brood War was made. So yeah, he's had a very strong influence on this game, and his influence is still felt, even today as he starts to move out to other projects, and we see a little less of him than we did before. But he's, his presence is very firmly felt in this game, and he is the driving force behind a lot of the cool stuff in the game.
Very cool. So I guess lastly, I'm just curious, how are those Zerg and Protoss expansions coming?
Well, we haven't really started much on them yet, I'm afraid. We're still trying to finish this one in time. I certainly wouldn't want to put any effort into those, when we still haven't have a beta out yet, and we still don't have, the game in players' hands. So once this beta goes out, and once we get really close to launch, and we're just debugging, I think we'll put a little bit more work, into those campaigns. But right now, we're not putting a lot of effort into those.
Do you even have just like the real basic kind of nascent ideas in your head of how those things are going to turn out?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were working on the game originally, and we were hoping to somehow magically cram all 3 games into one, like we were going to have 90 missions. Like I don't know what we were thinking. Yeah. When we were doing that part of the process, we had ideas of what was going to come in the Zerg campaign and what was coming in the Protoss campaign. But we've since, realized that, we were crazy. We were never going to get that done, and so we've sort of not worked on that, for quite a while now. But we had some ideas, and we kind of know where it's going, and there's certainly sort of an end planned for those campaigns and an end for the whole trilogy plan as well.
Okay. Obviously, you don't ever set your time frames in stone, but do you at least have kind of a basic idea of maybe what the separation is going to be between those releases?
Well, we don't know for sure, of course. This game is a lot more complicated than any other game we've made before. We've learned a lot from making Wings of Liberty, and obviously we're hoping we can leverage those tools and all of that knowledge into speeding up this process for the next 2 games. If you look at what we've done in the past, it's about a year for us to make an expansion pack, right? Which is kind of how we're thinking of these games in terms of the amount of content for the players. So you got to figure it's probably going to be a little bit more than that, right? It's sort of a logical guess, but really at the end of the day, who knows?
All right. Well, I guess I'm going to go back to biting my nails and holding my breath until this thing comes out. So thanks for your time.
Hey, thank you very much.